Under the cold white lights of a massive industrial building, the day began like any other. Machines hummed softly. Floors shined. People in expensive suits walked fast, holding tablets and speaking in low, serious voices. This was the heart of a powerful company, a place where decisions worth billions were made before lunch. Near the far wall, a black janitor pushed a cleaning cart slowly across the floor. He worked quietly, moving with care, wiping surfaces others never noticed. He wore faded blue overalls and worn work boots. His face showed calm focus, not weakness. He had learned long ago that silence often protected more than words. Outside the building, in the employee parking area far from the glass entrance, his old Mustang sat alone. The paint was dull, the body showed age. But the car was clean, respected, maintained with care. It was not abandoned. It was loved. Inside, the tension was growing. That morning was critical. The company's most important engine project, valued at $2 billion, was scheduled for a live demonstration. Investors were flying in. Media teams were setting up. Failure was not an option. In a glass meeting room above the floor, engineers argued over data on screens. The engine had failed again the night before. Pressure readings were unstable. Power output dropped without warning. No one could explain why. Then the CEO arrived. He entered with confidence, loud footsteps echoing across the floor. His suit was flawless. His voice carried authority. People straightened when he passed. As he walked toward the main floor, he glanced out the window and noticed the old Mustang parked far away. He stopped, smiled, then laughed. "What is that thing still doing here?" he said loudly. A few executives followed his gaze. Someone chuckled, another shook his head. The CEO walked closer to the window. "That car belongs in a museum," he said. "Or a scrapyard." The laughter grew louder. On the floor below, the janitor froze for half a second. He did not look up. He did not respond. He simply continued wiping the floor, but his grip tightened around the cloth. The CEO's voice carried further. "Imagine working around billion-dollar machines and driving that," he said. "Unbelievable." More laughter. The janitor finished the section he was cleaning and moved on. His face stayed neutral. Years ago, moments like this would have broken him. Now they only reminded him why he stayed quiet. As the morning moved on, engineers gathered around the massive engine at the center of the facility. It was a giant structure of metal, cables, and glowing panels. It was beautiful. It was powerful. And it was broken. The CEO joined them, still amused from earlier. "I don't want excuses today." The lead engineer hesitated. "We're still seeing instability in the core," he said. "We believe the design. Belief doesn't matter," the CEO interrupted. "Results do." The janitor moved closer as he cleaned nearby railings. He listened without appearing to listen. His eyes followed the engine. His mind began working. He recognized the sound. The vibration pattern. The way the light flickered at low output. It was familiar, very familiar. One of the engineers lowered his voice. "If this fails again, investors may pull out," he said. The CEO frowned. "It won't fail," he said, though his confidence was thinning. The janitor stepped back, pushing his cart toward a corner. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from memory. Years ago, he had faced the same problem. Different place, different life. He glanced toward the window where his Mustang waited. The engine test began. Power surged, panels lit up, numbers climbed. Then the vibration returned. Alarms sounded, red lights flashed. The engine powered down abruptly. Silence filled the room. The CEO's face darkened. "Again?" He snapped. Engineers exchanged looks. No one spoke. The janitor stood still, watching the engine settle into quiet. He could see the issue clearly now, the imbalance. The stress point, the mistake. He swallowed. This was not his place anymore. He reminded himself of that. He was here to clean, not to speak. But then the CEO laughed again. Bitter this time. All this money, he said, and we're still failing. Pathetic. His eyes drifted toward the janitor. At least you're good at something, he said dismissively. A few people looked uncomfortable. Others looked away. The janitor met the engine with one last look. His expression did not change, but inside, something shifted. He whispered, so quietly no one heard, "You're forcing it." He pushed his cart forward and continued his work, leaving the engine behind. But the problem stayed with him. As the morning light shifted and tension grew heavier, no one noticed the janitor pause near a control panel longer than needed. No one noticed the way he studied the machine one more time. And no one yet knew that the person they mocked understood the engine better than anyone in the room. The rest of the morning passed under a heavy cloud. After the failed test, engineers scattered across the facility, whispering in small groups, studying screens, arguing quietly. Phones buzzed with messages from investors asking for updates. The CEO locked himself in a glass office, pacing back and forth, his confidence cracking by the minute. On the floor below, the janitor continued his routine. He emptied trash bins. He wiped fingerprints from glass. He swept metal dust from corners no one else cared about. To everyone watching, he was just doing his job. But inside his mind, he was somewhere else. Every sound from the engine echoed in his head. The vibration had been wrong. Not loud, not obvious. But wrong in a way only someone who had lived inside machines could feel. The stress wasn't in the power output. It was in how the force was being carried through the core. He had seen this before. Years ago, long before the blue overalls, before the quiet mornings and long nights, his life had been very different. Back then, he wore clean shirts and carried tools that cost more than his current monthly rent. He worked in rooms like this one, but not as a cleaner. He was part of teams that built things no one else could explain. Machines people called impossible. He used to speak during meetings. He used to be heard. But life had a way of breaking people without warning. A sudden loss. A decision made by others behind closed doors. A moment when everything he built slipped away at once. No scandal, no crime, just silence. And doors that stopped opening. He chose a smaller life after that. A quieter one. A life where his child could sleep peacefully. Where food was always on the table. Where hope didn't depend on approval from people who laughed too easily. The Mustang came later. It was old when he bought it. Almost forgotten. People told him it wasn't worth fixing. But he saw something else. A strong frame. Honest design. Potential hidden under rust. He rebuilt it at night, slowly, carefully. Piece by piece. Not for speed, not for attention. But because it reminded him of who he used to be. And now, standing inside this building, watching a billion-dollar engine fail for the same reason his Mustang once did, his chest tightened. Across the room, the engineers gathered again. Voices rose. "We've recalculated everything," one said. "The design should hold." "It doesn't," another replied. "The math works, but the system doesn't." The CEO stepped out of his office, jaw clenched. "I don't care how it works," he snapped. "I need it working." The janitor passed behind them with his cart. No one noticed him. No one stopped him. He slowed as he reached a nearby railing. The engine stood quiet, massive and unfinished, like a giant holding its breath. He could fix it. The thought scared him. Not because it was hard, but because speaking up meant being seen again. It meant opening old doors. It meant risking humiliation in front of people who already looked down on him. He thought of his child waiting at home. Thought of the peace he had built. He pushed the cart forward. At lunchtime, the mood worsened. Food trays sat untouched. Engineers stared at screens. The CEO's phone rang constantly. "We're running out of time," someone said. "If we don't stabilize the engine today, we will," the CEO cut in. "I didn't build this company by quitting. The janitor wiped a table nearby. He heard every word. One engineer spoke quietly, almost afraid. "The imbalance might be structural," he said. "If that's the case, the whole approach may be wrong." The janitor stopped wiping. That was it. He knew that problem. He had solved it years ago using a method most people dismissed because it felt too simple, too manual, too human. He looked down at his hands. Grease still stained the lines of his skin, no matter how much he washed them. Hands that built, hands that fixed. He took a slow breath. Still, he said nothing. The CEO turned suddenly, frustration boiling over. "Why do we even have all these people here if no one can solve this?" he snapped. His eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on the janitor. For a moment, their eyes met. There was no anger in the janitor's face, no challenge. Just calm. That calm made the CEO look away. The janitor finished cleaning and moved toward the back hallway. But before leaving, he glanced once more at the engine. His mind replayed the steps, the adjustments, the balance point. It would take minutes, not hours. Behind him, another argument broke out. Voices overlapped. Pressure rose. He stopped walking. His heart beat louder now. He turned back toward the engine, knowing that once he spoke, nothing would stay the same. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to consider stepping out of the shadows. The argument reached its peak when the CEO slammed his hand on the table. "That's enough," he said sharply. "We don't have time for theories. We need results." The room went quiet. Engineers looked down at their notes. No one wanted to be the next person blamed. That was when the janitor stepped forward. Not loudly, not suddenly. Just one step closer than he had ever taken before. "Sir," he said calmly. The word echoed through the room like a dropped tool. Every head turned. The CEO looked surprised, then annoyed. "Yes," he said, already impatient. The janitor stood straight, hands relaxed at his sides. "I believe the issue isn't the power system," he said. "It's the load balance across the core." A few engineers blinked. Someone laughed softly. Not out of cruelty, but disbelief. The CEO's mouth tightened. "And you know this because," he asked. "I've seen this problem before," the janitor replied. His voice did not shake. "The engine is forcing symmetry where flexibility is needed." Silence followed. One engineer frowned. Another leaned closer to the screens. The CEO's patience snapped. "This is not a suggestion box," he said. "You're out of your role." "I understand," the janitor said. "I'm only asking for 2 minutes." 2 minutes. The room froze again. Security shifted near the wall, ready to move. The CEO laughed once, sharply. "You clean floors," he said. "This is a $2 billion system." The janitor nodded. "Yes, and it's failing for the same reason my car once did." That caught attention. "The Mustang?" Someone whispered. The CEO's smile faded slightly. "You're saying your old car compares to this?" "I'm saying the principle does," the janitor replied. Engineers exchanged looks. One of them hesitated, then spoke. "Sir, the imbalance theory isn't wrong. We just didn't think." "Enough," the CEO snapped, then paused. His jaw tightened. Time was slipping away. Investors were landing soon. Pride battled desperation. Finally, he exhaled. 2 minutes, he said. "That's it. Touch nothing you aren't told to." The janitor nodded once and stepped toward the control panel. The room felt smaller as he moved. Every step drew eyes, some curious, some mocking, some uncertain. He stopped at the panel and studied it carefully, as if greeting an old friend. He didn't rush. He didn't ask questions. He adjusted one setting slightly. An engineer leaned forward. "What did you change?" "Load distribution," the janitor said. "Just easing the stress." A low hum filled the room as the engine responded. Not louder, smoother. Another engineer checked the readings. "That's different." The janitor made a second adjustment, even smaller. The vibration softened, No alarm sounded. The CEO's confidence wavered. "Keep going," he said quietly. The janitor took one more breath and stepped back. "Start it," he said. The test resumed. Lights stabilized. Numbers climbed and held. For the first time that day, the engine didn't fight itself. Silence turned into disbelief. Someone whispered, "It's holding." The CEO stared at the screens, then at the janitor. His laugh was gone now. "Who are you?" he asked. The janitor looked at the engine, not at him. "Someone who remembers how things are supposed to work." The engine continued to hum steadily, filling the room with a sound no one had expected to hear: hope. The room stayed silent as the engine continued to run. Not the tense silence from before. This one was different, careful, almost afraid to be broken. Engineers leaned closer to their screens. Hands hovered over keyboards, but no one touched anything. Numbers stayed stable. Pressure lines held steady. The vibration that had haunted the system all morning was gone. "It's balanced," one engineer said quietly. Another shook his head. "That shouldn't be possible without a full redesign." The janitor stood a few steps back from the panel, hands behind his back, as if he had already finished his job. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't celebrating. To him, this moment felt familiar, like finishing a repair he had started long ago. The CEO walked forward slowly. Just hours earlier, he had laughed. Now his face showed something new, confusion, and something close to fear. "How did you know?" the CEO asked. The janitor didn't answer right away. He listened to the engine, like a doctor listening to a heartbeat. Only when he was satisfied did he speak. "Machines don't fail because they're weak," he said calmly. "They fail when they're forced to be something they're not." One engineer glanced at another. That sentence landed deeper than expected. The CEO frowned. "We followed the data." "Yes," the janitor said. "But you ignored the stress." He stepped closer to the engine, pointing at a section near the core. "Here, the system pushes equally from all sides, but the material can't carry that kind of pressure evenly. It needs room to flex." An engineer pulled up a new view on the screen. His eyes widened. "He's right," he said. "The stress lines. They're cleaner now." The CEO looked at the janitor again. "You've done this before." The janitor hesitated. "A long time ago." The engine suddenly shifted, tone still stable, but changing. Several engineers stiffened. "What's happening?" The janitor's eyes narrowed. "It's adjusting," he said. "It's fine. But it needs one more correction." The CEO's voice rose slightly. "Correction?" "Yes," the janitor replied. "The startup sequence." He turned to the CEO. "May I finish?" The CEO paused. This moment would decide everything. Trusting the janitor meant admitting the entire room had been wrong. Not trusting him meant risking another failure. "Do it," the CEO said. The janitor nodded and returned to the control panel. This time, his movements were faster, more confident. He adjusted the timing, not the power. Changed the order, not the force. The engine responded instantly. A deep, smooth sound filled the facility. Not loud, not violent. Powerful, controlled, alive. Green indicators lit up across the board. Someone gasped. "Full stability," an engineer whispered. Applause didn't come. No one moved. They were too stunned. The CEO stared at the engine, then at the janitor. "That startup sequence. We tested hundreds of versions." The janitor wiped his hands on his overalls. "Sometimes testing isn't the problem," he said. "Listening is." The CEO exhaled slowly. For the first time, he looked embarrassed. "I laughed at you," he said. His voice was lower now. "About your car." The janitor met his eyes, calm, honest. "It's okay," he said. "Most people do." "No," the CEO said firmly. "It's not." He turned to the engineers. "Who is he?" No one answered. The janitor spoke instead. "I'm just someone who fixes things." The CEO shook his head. "No," he said. "You're more than that." The janitor glanced toward the large window. toward the far parking lot. "I learned a lot rebuilding that Mustang," he said. "Old machines teach patience, respect, balance." An engineer laughed softly, not in mockery this time. "That car saved us," he said. The CEO nodded slowly. "It may have saved more than that." He straightened his jacket and looked around the room. "We need to review his background immediately." The janitor stiffened slightly. "That won't be necessary." "It is," the CEO replied, "because whatever you walked away from, this company walked past." The engine continued to run perfectly behind them. And for the first time in years, the janitor felt something he had almost forgotten: recognition. Not loud, not flashy, but real. The investigation did not take long. Within an hour, a small group of executives sat in a private room, scrolling through old records on a large screen. At first, the search brought up nothing unusual, just employment history gaps, temporary jobs. Years of silence. Then one engineer frowned. "Wait," he said. "This can't be right." He tapped the screen and pulled up an older database. The room grew quiet. There were patents. Several of them. Advanced mechanical designs tied to high-efficiency engines. Concepts that were once considered ahead of their time. The names of companies attached to them were familiar competitors, partners, even this company itself. The CEO leaned closer. "Open that one." A technical paper appeared. The diagrams looked almost identical to the adjustments the janitor had just made. "This work," an executive said slowly. "It influenced our early engine models." The CEO swallowed. "So we built on his ideas," he said, and forgot the person behind them. Outside the room, the janitor sat alone near the far wall of the facility, eating a simple lunch from a small container. He didn't know what was happening behind the glass doors. He didn't assume anything would change. He had fixed the problem. That was enough. Engineers passed by him now with different expressions. Some nodded, some stopped, wanting to speak, but unsure how. The distance that once existed felt thinner, fragile. The CEO stepped out of the room and walked straight toward him. "May I sit?" he asked. The janitor looked up, surprised, then nodded. They sat in silence for a moment. "You left the industry," the CEO said carefully. "Why?" The janitor looked down at his hands. "Because life asked me to choose," he said. "And I chose my child." The CEO nodded slowly. "You disappeared." "I didn't," the janitor replied. "I just stopped being visible." The CEO leaned back. "You should have been leading teams, designing systems." "Maybe," the janitor said. "But leadership costs something too." The CEO exhaled. "We're restarting the engine for the final test. Investors are watching." "I want you there." The janitor hesitated. "I've done my part." "You've only done the hard part," the CEO said. "Now let us do the right one." They returned to the main floor together. This time, conversation stopped when the janitor entered, not because he was ignored, but because he was noticed. The final test began. The engine powered up smoothly. No alarms, no instability, just clean, controlled force. The room filled with quiet relief. Then applause came, slow at first. Then steady. The janitor stood still, unsure what to do with it. The CEO raised his hand. "Before we continue," he said, "there's something I need to say." The room fell silent. "I laughed this morning," the CEO said. "I judged someone by what I saw, not by what they knew. That mistake almost cost us everything." He turned to the janitor. "I'm sorry." The words landed heavy. The janitor nodded once. "Thank you," he said. "Nothing more." The CEO continued. "We would like to offer you a position here. Not out of gratitude, but because you belong at the table." The janitor looked around the room. Faces once distant now watched with respect. "I'll think about it," he said. The CEO smiled slightly. "That's fair." As the engine ran flawlessly behind them, the janitor felt something shift inside him. Not pride. Not victory. Closure. He glanced through the glass doors once more. The old Mustang sat quietly in the distance, still waiting. The investigation did not take long. Within an hour, a small group of executives sat in a private room, scrolling through old records on a large screen. At first, the search brought up nothing unusual, just employment history gaps, temporary jobs. Years of silence. Then one engineer frowned. "Wait," he said. "This can't be right." He tapped the screen and pulled up an older database. The room grew quiet. There were patents. Several of them. Advanced mechanical designs tied to high-efficiency engines. Concepts that were once considered ahead of their time. The names of companies attached to them were familiar competitors, partners, even this company itself. The CEO leaned closer. "Open that one." A technical paper appeared. The diagrams looked almost identical to the adjustments the janitor had just made. "This work," an executive said slowly. "It influenced our early engine models." The CEO swallowed. "So we built on his ideas," he said, and forgot the person behind them. Outside the room, the janitor sat alone near the far wall of the facility, eating a simple lunch from a small container. He didn't know what was happening behind the glass doors. He didn't assume anything would change. He had fixed the problem. That was enough. Engineers passed by him now with different expressions. Some nodded, some stopped, wanting to speak, but unsure how. The distance that once existed felt thinner, fragile. The CEO stepped out of the room and walked straight toward him. "May I sit?" he asked. The janitor looked up, surprised, then nodded. They sat in silence for a moment. "You left the industry," the CEO said carefully. "Why?" The janitor looked down at his hands. "Because life asked me to choose," he said. "And I chose my child." The CEO nodded slowly. "You disappeared." "I didn't," the janitor replied. "I just stopped being visible." The CEO leaned back. "You should have been leading teams, designing systems." "Maybe," the janitor said. "But leadership costs something too." The CEO exhaled. "We're restarting the engine for the final test. Investors are watching." "I want you there." The janitor hesitated. "I've done my part." "You've only done the hard part," the CEO said. "Now let us do the right one." They returned to the main floor together. This time, conversation stopped when the janitor entered, not because he was ignored, but because he was noticed. The final test began. The engine powered up smoothly. No alarms, no instability, just clean, controlled force. The room filled with quiet relief. Then applause came, slow at first. Then steady. The janitor stood still, unsure what to do with it. The CEO raised his hand. "Before we continue," he said, "there's something I need to say." The room fell silent. "I laughed this morning," the CEO said. "I judged someone by what I saw, not by what they knew. That mistake almost cost us everything." He turned to the janitor. "I'm sorry." The words landed heavy. The janitor nodded once. "Thank you," he said. "Nothing more." The CEO continued. "We would like to offer you a position here. Not out of gratitude, but because you belong at the table." The janitor looked around the room. Faces once distant now watched with respect. "I'll think about it," he said. The CEO smiled slightly. "That's fair." As the engine ran flawlessly behind them, the janitor felt something shift inside him. Not pride. Not victory. Closure. He glanced through the glass doors once more. The old Mustang sat quietly in the distance, still waiting. The building slowly returned to normal after the demonstration ended. Investors shook hands. Engineers relaxed for the first time in weeks. Conversation sounded lighter, calmer. The crisis was over. The engine had proven itself. But for the janitor, the day was not about success. It was about choice. He finished his shift quietly, just as he always did. He cleaned the last hallway, emptied the final bin, and returned his cart to the storage room. No one stopped him. No one rushed him. Respect now followed him in silence. Outside, evening light touched the parking lot. His old Mustang waited in the same spot as always. He rested his hand on the hood for a moment before getting in, feeling the familiar warmth of metal. At home, his child ran to the door, smiling wide. That smile mattered more than any applause. Later that night, his phone rang. It was the CEO. "I meant what I said," the CEO told him. "The offer stands, leadership role, full support. Flexible time." The janitor listened quietly. "I won't come back the way I left," he said calmly. "I won't trade my life again." "You won't have to," the CEO replied. "We need your mind, not your sacrifice." The janitor looked around his small home. The peace, the safety, the life he built with care. "I'll help," he said. "But on my terms." The next weeks brought change but not noise. He didn't walk into the company as a hero. He walked in as a problem solver. He mentored young engineers. He redesigned systems quietly. He listened more than he spoke. The Mustang stayed. Some mornings people noticed it and smiled. The CEO changed too. Meetings became quieter. Assumptions were questioned. Respect became something earned, not assumed. One afternoon, as the janitor, now an engineer again, prepared to leave, the CEO stopped him. "You taught us something," he said. The man nodded. "Machines don't need ego," he replied. "People don't either." He drove home slowly, windows down, engine steady. The same engine people once mocked. Not junk, not small. Just underestimated. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything.